And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on a Tuesday evening. A lot of headlines around Major League Baseball, so let's start a little quicker here. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was looking for a $500 million contract in present-day value in his contract extension talks with the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays, though, wanted lots of deferrals in there, as seems to be in vogue around Major League Baseball right now. Guerrero did not want deferrals in that contract. While he wanted that present-day value to be $500 million, it sounds like he would at least have been open to it if the Blue Jays were the team that was giving the deferrals. I wonder if that's going to be the case once he gets to free agency, but that'll be a discussion for another day. The question for the Blue Jays is, if you knew that's the number he was ultimately looking to get to, why are you so insistent about those deferrals? You have all the money in the world to be able to make this signing. You say you're willing to go after Shohei Ohtani, you're going after Aaron Judge, you're going after Juan Soto, and yet your own player you're somehow having to come up with deferrals for? Doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when they've already done deferrals for the guys they brought in this year. Sounds like there's money for them to be able to utilize. Now, understandably, the world's economic climate is in a very different place right now, but at the time they were negotiating that contract extension, that was not necessarily the issue. And so I don't want to hear excuses about, well, you never know what's going to happen. You want to have those deferrals to at least give you some opportunities to space out that money. Maybe they didn't have the money to go out there and give these guys. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you're in there for Juan Soto at over $700 million, you're darn sure going to be in there for your own free agent at $500 million. Now, that's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. That's a big-time contract. That's a really big contract for a player like Vladimir Guerrero. This is really going to raise the threshold for what first basemen are going to make going forward. But what a start for Vladimir Guerrero to kind of take into free agency. He's going to take that deferred contract that he was offered from the Toronto Blue Jays of $450 million and say, guys, this is the contract that doesn't get it done. This is where your bidding is going to have to get significantly better for me to even hear you out. And so he's going to do very, very well in free agency, way better than even I thought he was going to do. There has been some reports that he's looking for upwards of $550, maybe even $600 million in free agency. I think it'd be absolutely crazy to do something like that. But with the way money is skyrocketing in the sport right now, honestly, not that surprising when you're seeing the numbers just keep going up. It's just the new norm. I guess we're going to have to get used to it. It always takes a little bit of adjustment period. But what a number to begin free agency with this coming off season. It's going to be a heck of a show to be able to figure out where he ultimately goes. There's going to be no shortage of teams interested in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Item number one. Second item, I wanted to get into some of the ABS kind of discussions about the ball strike challenge system. Talk a little bit about the Robo umps that I believe are coming in the future. Now, we've talked a little bit about my belief that eventually going full Robo ump, determining balls and strikes would be better for the sport. I kind of laid out how, you remove the entire argument about balls and strikes, whether you're arguing whether it's in there or not. We have the technology, fine-tune it, let's get it in there and figure out how we want to set the strike zone. They changed the strike zone a little bit for this ABS system for it to work. We'll have to see how things work out this season. I agree. Figure out the kinks. I get it. Maybe you're not necessarily comfortable with it yet. I don't agree with the challenge system at all, just because, hey, if we have the technology to figure out if it's a strike or a ball, why are we picking and choosing when to utilize it, first and foremost? And two, if you're going to say that this is a strike, this is a ball because of the challenge system, why aren't we instituting it from a major league standpoint just unilaterally? This is a decision that could have been made in Major League Baseball's hands without even consulting the Players Association. They had that as part of the collective bargaining agreement they made the last time around. So curious to see what they're going to do. There's been a lot of dropped balls anyway by both sides in the last collective bargaining agreement. The international draft was supposed to have been solved within a month or two after the last work stoppage ended. That ultimately still has not happened to this day and will be item number one, I imagine, for Major League Baseball to be able to get solved. I'm sure players would love to be able to solve a couple of other issues, and smaller market teams would love to be able to solve the deferred contract issue. So we might be kicking the can down the road, say a year or two or three for robo-umps, but I do believe it will be coming. And then, last item I wanted to get into anyway, is what the Los Angeles Dodgers are going to be doing with their lineup. Something that caught my eye today was that they decided to option Ha-Seong Kim, or Hae-Sung Kim, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the Korean-born player anyway who was coming over from the KBO was expected to be a center point of their middle infield, corner infield defense. This is a player that was expected to be their starting second baseman going into the season, and when you have international baseball going on right now, he would have been the guy you'd want in that lineup to showcase your sport if you're Major League Baseball. Obviously, there's been an issue here, and what it sounds like happened here is that the bat didn't live up to what the Dodgers were really looking for here. Maybe he's just a slow starter to the season. Could very well be the case. But if the Dodgers ultimately have this much of concern over his bat that they're not even willing to say, hey, maybe it's just spring training, he'll turn it on when the lights are brightest when he's back overseas, if they're not willing to even give him that benefit of the doubt, tells me that the Dodgers may have some internal discussions about them possibly needing another bat. And this is where things get interesting. You guys know where I'm going. Say it with me. Nolan Arenado. Now, we already know they have a lot of versatility in their infield already. I'm not saying Arenado is a ready-made second baseman for them, but I am saying he would be a certain improvement for that lineup if they have that much of a concern over Hae-Sung Kim. So it'll be an interesting start to the season, see what they do, see how long he stays in the minors. Of course, since he was just signed, he has options remaining, so maybe it's just a roster crunch thing. But what it sounds like is the bat might be a little bit lighter than what they were expecting. We already knew he was a little bit of a lighter hitting player, more of a defense-first guy. Understandably so, maybe it'd take him a little bit more time to get comfortable with Major League pitching, even when he gets in there every day at the Major League level. But even with those concerns, apparently they were too insurmountable for him to at least be on the international stage in a Dodgers uniform. Tells me that the front office is really considering some lineup changes there before we've even gotten into the season. Now, understandably, the Dodgers, to me, still have one of the best lineups in the game, if not the very best. When you boast a lineup that features Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani, and oh, by the way, you brought back Teoscar Hernandez, you still have Will Smith behind the plate, Max Muncy, you bring in Conforto. You're also going to have a couple of nice pieces in the outfield throughout the year. Outman, I think, will get a nice run out there in the outfield. You have Tommy Edman for a full season this year. And then their top prospect figures to be at the Major League level at some point this year as well, in kind of a backup catcher, left field role. Name's escaping me at the moment anyway. But they have a lot of options to turn to offensively. So the Dodgers, while I still think they're a very good team, might be open for some improvements as we get towards the All-Star break and the trade deadline. But appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. The heart is nice and everything, but make sure you hit that thumbs up, like the video. It means a lot to us here at the Upside. Really do appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. That way, if for some reason you don't get the notification when we go live, you will also find it there every time we go live. You wonder why I take that 2 minutes at the beginning of every single video? That's to go ahead and share the link out there to every single one of you guys. That way, if you don't get the one from YouTube, you guys can find it out there and join us here. So I really do appreciate you guys joining us. So let's check in with you guys real quick. All right, Rafe, Cowboys Nation, Holly, welcome back. Welcome back. Appreciate you joining us. Can't say Blue Jays didn't try. True, but I thought they would have tried a little harder, honestly. I told you guys this offseason was a make-or-break thing for them, that they would be judged solely on whether or not they secured their long-term future with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I guarantee you the price of poker is going to go significantly higher this offseason because they didn't get that extension done. How high? I'm expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 550 minimum. Maybe we get into the $600 million category with as many teams as I think are going to be in the running for him. We could see numbers that high. Somewhere in the 15-year range, I would expect, kind of space out the AAV. Rafe, also great day to be a Texans and Rangers fan. Both had some positives happen today. Yes, I will say the Rangers, though, had some negatives as well. Head-scratching performance anyway from Jack Leiter, who I thought was making some positive strides. Looked great for the first four hitters of the game, or first four hitters he faced. And then the next four hitters, just absolutely wild. Couldn't find the strike zone. And that's kind of been the issue with Jack Leiter when he's been in front of the major league team, is that he'll have these episodes of great dominance, and then he'll just lose his command for a short period of time. Luckily, he was able to buckle back down and get through 2 2/3. But a little bit of a head-scratching performance from Jack Leiter, a guy who I thought was building a nice resume to be able to make a push for a opening day roster spot. After this performance, I wonder just how much jeopardy his role is to start the season on the major league roster. Maybe they give him some time just to kind of tune things up at the minor league level to start the year. But I do believe Jack Leiter will pitch at least 80 to 100 innings at the major league level for the Rangers this year. It's just that his roster spot out of the gate might be affected a little bit by the inconsistency of his performance today. Now, the other bit of news, Tyler Mahle was scratched out of an extreme abundance of caution. I'm sure we'll hear that phrase a number of times this season for when he's pulled from a start or when he's scratched from a start. I don't think this year's going to go the way Tyler Mahle wants it to go. Just the way things are trending right now, he's probably going to line up as the Rangers' number 4 or 5 starter at best right now. I think he has the performance to be a number 2 in somebody's rotation. But I think his availability and his ability to miss bats because he hasn't been able to get enough work in the starting rotation is really going to hinder him. And so that could be the spot Jack Leiter takes early in the season that ultimately is in and out of the lineup regularly for the Rangers this year. I did not have high hopes for him coming into the year, but I thought he would at least be consistent enough and healthy enough for them to count on for at least the start of the year. And before we even get there, out of an abundance of caution, I'll take it with a huge grain of salt there, abundance of caution, they're already scratching him from a start. Now, it is spring training, abundance of caution, you hear that a lot with every single guy. If you're not feeling it that day, there's no reason to push it. It's a forearm strain, so it's nothing serious. But maybe it's just kind of, building up that arm strength is what's giving him the issue now. But I want to see him out on the mound the next time he's healthy and actually go out there and do what he expects to do. Go through the full set that he's supposed to work through. If it's supposed to throw 3 innings, I want to see him finish 3 innings. If he's supposed to finish 4 innings, I want to see him finish 4 innings. I don't want to see him pulled because he got too high in a pitch count in the second inning. I don't want to see him pulled because he felt some tightness in his throwing arm or he had a blister on his thumb. I don't want to see any of those ticky-tack injuries. I get it. They're ticky-tack at spring training, but I want him to get off on the right foot here with the Texas Rangers this season, and this ain't it so far. Leiter going to be cut down than walks? Absolutely. All he does, that was his blemish. Yes, pitchers already dropping like flies. Absolutely, Cowboys Nation. If you're just joining us and missed our last several lives, there have been several starting pitchers go down due to several different types of injuries. One team above all others has been affected by the most. We're looking at the New York Yankees with Gerrit Cole. It sounds like the Yankees had an inkling an injury might be persisting from last season. That's why they were so firm in a need for a starting pitcher. That's why they bring in Max Fried. Now, is he Gerrit Cole? I don't think so. I think he's still a really good starting pitcher, a really high-end, 2A, if you will, or a low-end ace. But I still think he's going to be a good option for the Yankees this year. Do I think they're a World Series contending team? I don't think so. I think they're a team that if they make the right decisions at the deadline, maybe they could get back into that discussion. But as currently set with that roster, I think they're a team that's going to be pushing for a wild card, and they may or may not get there. They're going to have a lot of teams in that same mix, and injuries have already affected this team. Now, Gerrit Cole is lost for the season due to Tommy John. I'm sure you guys have already gotten that notification. But oh, by the way, they're going to be without Luis Gil as well for at least 2 months, and it sounds like 3 according to Ken Rosenthal. That's 2 starting pitchers. 2 guys you're counting on to give you 120, 150 innings minimum this year. Now, luckily enough for them, they didn't trade away Marcus Stroman yet. They have some options that they can go to, but they absolutely need to bring in outside reinforcements for this rotation, and we'll see which options they ultimately choose to bring in. Other injuries that we've seen, the Mets be effective with Montas and Manaea. They, luckily enough for them, were able to bring in Jose Urena. The Brewers are going to have several starting pitchers that are on, we'll call them pitch clocks, at least to begin the year. Woodruff is coming back from a major injury that he missed the entirety of, I believe he missed the entirety of last season. or at least a significant chunk of it. But he's going to be on a bit of a pitch clock to begin the year as well. So they were able to bring in Jose Quintana. But a lot of injuries out there. George Kirby, the number 2 in the rotation, or number 1 in that rotation for the Seattle Mariners, depending on who you ask, is going to start the season on the injured list. Now, hopefully they can get him back sooner rather than later, but it sounds like he's going to miss at least 3 weeks of the season, and who knows if he's going to need a rehab start or two. Maybe he gets back, late April, early May. For a team that's going to be very dependent on its starting pitching, this is not a good sign for the Mariners. That lineup is atrocious, and that pitching staff's going to have to carry him, and you're telling me they're going to miss at about a month with their number 1 or number 2 starter, depending on how you slice it, with Logan Gilbert and George Kirby, doesn't bode well for the Mariners to be able to push for a wild card or a division championship. The Seattle Mariners need to add some offense there, and we'll see if they ultimately decide to, increase the budget there, but not a good start here with Kirby going on the injured list. The Orioles have also been affected with Grayson Rodriguez in their starting rotation, in the bullpen with Kittredge. There's a number of other injury issues out there. That's just the tip of the iceberg. We will see some of the free agents that are still out there, like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. I imagine those guys will be signing sometime in the next week or so. Robertson, I would expect signs in the next week. I think he wants to get at least into a couple of spring training games before he goes onto a major league roster. We'll have to see how things work out. But, it's getting very close to opening day right now, so we'll see what ultimately happens. A lot of rosters are going to be changing at the back end there as they try to set their 26-man rosters. All right, Heel, welcome in. You're jamming Bobby Caldwell, what you wouldn't do for love, but it's okay. We can talk baseball. Absolutely, baseball is getting exciting now. Rafe, it's crazy to me we live in a world where if you offer $500 million instead of $700 million, it gets rejected. True, I told you he doesn't want to be in Toronto. I don't think that's the issue, though, Cowboys Nation. I think he still wants to be in Toronto. He just wants his number. And if he was looking for $500 million in present-day value and didn't want deferrals, I think Toronto, if they had offered that, he probably would have accepted it. He does seem fond of the Toronto area. He does seem fond of his teammates, but I think he's understanding the window is certainly closing there in Toronto. So he wants to see, some long-term pieces come in that he thinks will be part of a winning team there in Toronto. He doesn't just want to sign like Myles Garrett and get the $40 million a year and just say, I'm done, not going to go to a contender anymore, I'll take the bag and leave. He ain't doing that. I think he would sign that $500 million if there was a long-term plan to continue to add to the team after they still make the addition of Vlad Guerrero Jr. Probably tired of being, I don't know about that one, my friend. Robo equals garbage, not a fan. Well, I mean, you haven't tried it yet, my friend. I will say, would you rather see Bryce Harper on his couch, looking up at his stats on the screen instead of being in the lineup because he was thrown out for arguing balls and strikes because an umpire missed a strike or missed a ball that was a foot outside and called it a strike, cost the Phillies a game? Would you rather that decide who ultimately gets that final wild card spot if it's between, say, the Phillies and Padres for that final wild card spot, and the Phillies lose out on that wild card spot because they lost the game because the umpire screwed up the call? Now, sure, revisionist history, there's a million other things they could have done in the game to make it better. I don't give a damn. I just want to see actual calls being made correctly, and when it's something so easy to solve as knowing whether it's a ball or strike, it is the simplest thing to figure out. Where was the location of the pitch? Do we need to have the human element tell us where the pitch was? No. We're human beings. We can see it. We have the technology to know where it was in real time. Sure, you may want to fine-tune it. Sure, you may want to adjust your definition of what the strike zone is. Do all of that. I'm not saying don't go ahead and do your homework and try to improve it. But what I am saying, it's silly to sit there and look at your superstar that's not available because he, put his finger in the umpire's chest arguing balls and strikes. Your manager getting tossed. Sure, it adds an element of drama, but the umpires need to be focusing on all the other rules of the game that they're ignoring because they're calling balls and strikes. The check swing call, I saw him go around. No, you were focusing on where the pitch location was. You didn't actually see his bat go through the zone. You think you saw it go through the zone, but in reality, all you saw was the ball travel through the zone and the bat didn't get even over the plate. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? I mean, really, what are we talking about? Are we just that averse to getting a call right that we're so adamant we want the human element in the game. We don't think there'll still be humans playing the sport. Humans still calling safe or out at first base. Humans still calling whether or not the guy went through the zone on a check swing. There's tons of human elements still there. Umpires are still going to have a role. Umpires don't need to worry about losing their jobs. They have a very difficult job. Yes. Does this job, or does it make it a little bit easier? Sure. Do I understand the umpire's hesitation about possibly feeling less valuable on the field? Sure, I understand how they might feel that way, but they still have a million other calls to make on the field. They're doing inspections for substances. Whether the ball was fair or foul. Home runs, did it get over the fence or did it not? We have replay to help out as well in case they are too far away and couldn't see it. And yes, there's still the human element. We're talking about the Rangers playing the Astros. We're talking about the Yankees playing the Red Sox, not the umpires playing the Rangers and the Angels. Yes, they're the third team that's on the field, but we should be noting them as administrators of the game, telling us whether it's a strike or a ball. When we have the technology to solve these things, what are we doing here? Like, I get it. Fine-tune it. Try to improve it. Take all the time you need, but ultimately, get it right. That's all I'm saying. Why are we still arguing and losing our star players for periods of time and having outcomes of games decided whether or not an umpire was able to see the ball over the plate or not, whether or not he could see the check swing or not, whether there was a balk by the pitcher or not? There's all kinds of things that he's going to have to do besides administer whether or not it was a ball or strike. Taking that off the table, allowing that to actually be what the actual call should be, should absolutely be the goal. And I understand you want to, slowly build up to it. I understand you might not be crazy about it, the old school mindset. We've done this the 100 years, etc., of having the human element of the game, framing for catchers, stealing a strike on the corner. I don't care. That's not the game to me. The game to me is between the lines. It's not between the ears of the umpire. It's just not. All right. Steven, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Heel, welcome back. Let's see here. They should have paid him because he was their guy. He also would have attracted others. Now others will not take Toronto seriously as a destination. I think that's what we saw as well, not just this offseason, but last offseason as well for Toronto. They're not willing to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They're in there trying to negotiate with outside free agents before taking care of their own house. You go ahead and you lock up Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last offseason. You have 2 seasons still under contract, plus whatever you extend him to. Now you go into negotiations with Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto and say, hey, look, we got you a running mate right here. One of the best offensive weapons in the game. Locked up long-term at a contract, by the way, that would have been significantly cheaper had they done it then as opposed to after the Juan Soto deal. Now, sure, they have a lot of money that they would have been spending on Vlad. But then you still have so much money coming off the books. And don't cry poor to me, Toronto. You have all kinds of money there with the Rogers connections, etc. You have all kinds of money to be able to do whatever you want with that organization. And almost no money committed long-term. This offseason, you commit some long-term money to Jimenez. Don't understand that deal. But other than that, most of those deals expire in a couple of years. So they would have all the financial flexibility to do whatever they wanted to. So I'll agree with you there, Stephen. They kind of screwed the pooch on this one. They should have locked him up much, much earlier. Heel, I'm all for being able to challenge a ball or strike per at bat. Love the art of framing. I'm not a huge framing fan. I get it. It's part of the game. Catchers, it's a skill. I understand that as well. But if I'm a batter and my job is to figure out whether or not it's a strike or a ball, and I'm really good, I have a really good eye at the plate. But we're taught as kids, if it's close, swing. Why are we taught at that at a young age? Because we're taught in Little League and high school baseball, travel baseball, college baseball. They don't have the technology. These umpires aren't as skilled as the major league umpires. These umpires at the major league level are supposed to be the best in the world. And you're telling me we couldn't figure out whether it was a strike or a ball? that a catcher was able to fool the umpire? Like, at a certain point, it's a skill, sure. Is it a skill we should be encouraging? That's another. All right, Cowboys Nation. Even in college, I was told if it's close, you shouldn't be looking. Yeah, that's kind of what I was just talking about. I mean, we're taught at that at a young age because they don't have the ability to really know, to go back and do a review. Sure, that's kind of the new age of thinking. But even back then, the umpires were seen as, hey, this is the local lawyer for your town that's coming and helping you on the weekends to judge whether or not the little league teams are, they're helping out, being the umpire, the home plate umpire. They're not doing this, 365 days a year type of a job. This is a job where they're paid on a stipend type of a basis if they work for a school district. Now, there are traveling umpires that do a heck of a job. I've met several of them at the local level, and they'll tell you it's a very hard job. They're having to deal with parents. They're having to deal with the manager or the coaches for the other teams. They're having to deal with the own UIL, the way they set things up as far as the administration of the sport. They're having so much to contend with, and most times it's one umpire at these games. If we're lucky, maybe we get two. A guy to call balls and strikes, and somebody who's a roving umpire between first and second base. If we're really lucky, when we get to state championship type of competition, maybe we get the full umpire set. You get a home plate umpire, first base, second base, and third base. Sometimes we're asking parents to come out of the stands and be the umpire, or to be the umpire at first base for a game because somebody didn't show up because they had to take a shift at Dairy Queen. Umpires at the Major League Baseball level are supposed to be the best in the world. And yes, they were taught at a young age to swing at anything close. But you're telling me we know in this day and age where that ball is. We have the technology to pinpoint with 100% accuracy whether or not it was a strike or a ball. And sure, you may want to adjust the definition of a strike zone. You may want to get down to a little bit better graphics and be able to track it a little bit differently. Change the way in which you track the pitch. Make it a little bit easier to capture that information. But when we're able to do it and do it effectively already, what are we doing here? Why are we losing Bryce Harper arguing balls and strikes? Why are we losing a game? Why are we losing a series? Why are we losing a playoff game? Because of, quote, human error that could easily be solved. That's my argument there. All right. Try to catch up to a few of these here. Let's see. Rafe, I've dealt with my fair share of bad calls, but I'll always be for having umpires, giving framing catchers a purpose, and it's fun having umpires with pitcher and batter-friendly zones. Just part of the game. It's part of the game we grew up with, sure. I'll give you that one. As far as having a batter-friendly umpire, pitcher-friendly umpire, again, that's kind of the days gone by as far as what we've all kind of grown up with. As far as catchers, defensive catchers losing their ability to stay on a roster, I mean, you still have to be able to handle a pitching staff. Yes, the managers do call a game for the most part nowadays, but you do have the catchers, the rare ones that are really special defensively as well, that can be able to help call a game for their pitching staff. Help those young pitchers get through their beginning of their careers and help them become better pitchers. Sure, they're better at blocking the ball in the dirt. Look at Gary Sanchez. He's still in the league and is one of the worst at being a defensive catcher. Why is he still in there? For his offense. Just as easily, Austin Hedges, one of the worst catchers we've seen in the last 15, 20 years, is still in the league because of his defensive abilities. Does framing help? Absolutely. But it's his defensive abilities, not just with framing, that keep him in the league as well. His ability to call a game. His ability to block balls in the dirt. Austin Hedges excels at all those. And there are other ways for catchers, defensive catchers who don't offer much offensively, to still remain part of the game. And as far as umpires, they would still have plenty to be taken care of. I just think it's silly that we're having outcomes of games decided by incorrect calls, or because you don't have your superstar in there because they were arguing balls and strikes. Does it add drama? Sure. But there's still plenty of drama in the game. You'll still be arguing about whether or not he was safe at home or not. The neighborhood play at second base. The intent of the rule. The spirit of the rule. You'll still have all those debates out there. There'll still be plenty of drama in Major League Baseball. And it's time we finally start embracing technology. Thankfully, Major League Baseball has started to make some of those improvements, but you're going to have to drag him kicking and screaming, it sounds like, to get this thing fully automated, and I think they will get there at some point. This is just the first steps. The ABS system here, you know, like I said, we've seen some really bad umpires in the past. Angel Hernandez comes to mind. Look at that at bat with Wyatt Langford. Is it the exception to the rule? Sure. I'll say that there's a lot of really great umpires out there. But when you see the umpire scorecards that you see out there, how they really dictate the big swings and momentum in the game, you have bases loaded. Nobody out in the fifth inning. Bryce Harper's up to bat. You're down by 1. He takes a 3-2 pitch about 6 inches off the plate. He gets rung up and tossed out of the game. You're telling me that that call didn't have a huge swing in win probability for that game? Sure, you'd have 4 more innings to solve. You'd have the next batter coming up to be able to knock in those runs that are on base. But you don't have your best hitter in your lineup anymore. Now Bryce Harper's going to get a note from the league saying, hey, by the way, we need to have a conference about how many games we're going to suspend you for after being ejected from this one because you argued balls and strikes, even though the umpire was clearly wrong. You end up losing the game because you lost your best player. Who knows what would have happened in those final 4 innings. But that game, you're tied, you're 86 wins and 86 wins at the end of the season. That win could have pushed you from an 86 win mark that gets you into the postseason, or 87 win mark that gets you for sure in the postseason, or just missing it because of a tiebreaker. And I think my biggest argument here is just accuracy is important to me. Above pretty much everything, especially when we know the accuracy here. I don't think that anybody's arguing that we don't have the technology right now, or that it couldn't be improved to the point where everybody, and I mean everybody, even the people that would be the staunchest critics of it, would say, yeah, this is pretty dang good out there. Why are we continuing to have this type of a problem? Even when you have those type of critics, once they finally look at that, are all coming back and saying, hey, why are we exactly dragging our feet here? Why are we being stubborn with the way baseball used to be? It is called America's pastime. It doesn't need to be a bygone era completely in the future. So just keep up with the times. And, they've done a little bit of that over the last couple of years, and I think they'll continue to do it. I'll get down off of my soapbox here in just a minute, but, I just think that if you have the ability to be as accurate as possible, why settle for anything less? There's still plenty to do. There's still plenty of calls that need to be made. There's still plenty to be made as far as money for the umpires. You're not going to dismiss the umpires completely. But balls and strikes, you worry about it being a slippery slope. What do we do about calls at first and second base? How quickly can we get the message on the field? Well, the umpire still is going to relay that information. They're still going to be arguing whether or not that replay that you saw was actually safe or out. They're the arbiters of the rules of the game. What is and what is not a balk. They're doing all the substance checks, determining whether it was fair or foul. There's all kinds of calls that they make on the field without using any technology that they're still going to be handling. They'll still be the human element of the game as well. Catchers are still going to have to be a good defensive catcher behind the plate if they want to stay in the major leagues as a less than effective offensive player. They'd still have a role out there if they know how to be a good defender behind the plate, keep the ball in front of them, don't let it go back to the backstop, and allow their young starting pitchers, their young relievers to come in and have success, settle down those guys, and be a coach on the field behind the plate. Those guys have a role. Austin Hedges, point in case right there. There is a place for offensive-minded players as well. And as far as, the days where we have an offensive-minded umpire where his strike zone is so small that basically it's a dead red fastball and that's where it's going to be, and the outcome is going to be 10-8 before you even take one pitch into the game because the umpire strike zone is so tiny, walks are going to be through the roof. And then you have the pitching-friendly ones where they allow a strike 6 inches outside the zone. This final score is going to be 1-0 because you're not going to see any pitches over the plate all game long. You're still going to see all kinds of drama because now they have a fair scenario here. Pitchers have the same strike zone to work with that the hitters do, day in and day out. Players can learn how to fine-tune their craft, how to hit those corners. The days of having a 100-mile-an-hour fastball miss 6 inches out of the plate, outside off the plate called a strike would be gone. The days where we have guys like Greg Maddux who are able to paint those corners would come back. The pitchability pitcher that hasn't been able to get to the major leagues in the past 10 to 15 years because all major league teams want is velocity right now would be allowed to come back up to the major leagues. Greg Maddux right now, I'm not sure he would get to the major leagues in this current climate. Just food for thought there. You wouldn't have the Hall of Fame career of several starting pitchers who didn't blow anybody away with a radar gun. Now, I'm not saying that they were, soft tossing up there, but they certainly weren't throwing 102 miles an hour. They weren't throwing, 5 walks a game out there every single time they took the mound. It's a different day and age. Baseball is different. And this would be adding another group of players back into Major League Baseball. And if you're the Players Association, that'd be something I'd be looking for as well. You'd still have a place for those guys who hit 100 miles an hour and can locate, but you'd also be able to get those pitchers who didn't even get a chance to even get to the major league level because they weren't allowed to. Because if you didn't hit 100 miles an hour at the radar gun at your single A start, I guess we'll let him languish down there. He can be a mentor to our younger players that are able to hit that triple-digit mark on the radar gun, and then those guys will be brought up. And then eventually, that guy's career is just over. Even though he's a better pitcher, gets the outs, dots the strike zone, and is efficient with his pitches, he hasn't been able to get up to the major leagues in the last 10 to 15 years nearly as much as they have in years past. And those pitchers would be coming back into the game. There are several starting pitchers out there that would be very useful to teams if they could actually hit the strike zone a lot more. And that's even without robo-umps coming into it. But I just think it's very interesting how we have a way to make sure it is a strike, it is a ball. And if you're not confident, they're willing to take their time with you. That's why they're going slow here and doing the ABS challenge system. See how it works, test it out, change the definition of a strike zone, nail it down. What percentage is up to the letters or to the knees? Each player is a little bit different. Is it the top of the knee, the bottom of the knee? Is it the front knee? Is it the back knee? I can't tell you how many times a batter will be in his stance in the batter's box and then step in front across the plate. By the way, you're not able to do that according to the rules, and be able to knock the pitch out into left field or serve it out into right. We used to commend Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for that kind of thing. The ball would bounce into the plate and he'd still hit it. We'd still have some moments, I'm sure, that'd be along those lines. But normally, when you see some of those things happen, a batter leaning into a pitch and getting hit by it, trying to steal a base, kind of the gamesmanship of the game, some things that umpires are usually missing, they kind of look at it like WWE officials and be like, oh no, I didn't see nothing. I was looking at the guy in the corner over here yelling at me. I didn't see the guy lean into the pitch because I was focusing on where that pitch was being thrown. We don't need to act like WWE referees and be blind to the other things on the field. And allowing robo-umps to come in, or allowing a robo-ump to allow you to figure out where that ball and strike was, would solve a lot of the issues in the game that aren't just ball and strike related. Balks would be called a whole lot more because they would be noticed more because the umpires are paying attention to those things more. A batter even being in the batter's box would become a thing. Making sure they're actually in the box instead of standing over the line where they're not supposed to be, allowing the pitcher to get an unfair or being at an unfair disadvantage for that. There's the gamesmanship of the game, sure, and that's why there is a box. You can go up in the box, you can go back in the box, you can go all the way to the edge of the box on the inside of the plate, you can go all the way out towards the box and be as far away from the outside corner as you want to be. You can stand straight up, you can get down. But what needs to be here is a lot more attention paid to those details that are completely being missed. And baseball is still a great sport. I'm very passionate about it, as you guys can see. And I hope you guys are just as passionate about it. I just want to see this game continue to improve. And when we have the technology to make it better, why not go ahead and do so? All right. Hank, welcome in. No matter what, there's always an Upside Sports Network. Thank you, my friend. Heel, I'm telling you, Leiter is a bullpen guy, maybe even a closer. I think he will be kind of that piggyback starter, if you will, for Molly early in the season if he breaks through the camp with the Texas Rangers. If he doesn't, I think he'll be stretched out still as a starter. Rangers still want to utilize him as a starter, and he has a new pitch that is working well for him, but his command was an issue today. I think that needs to be solved and solved quickly if he's going to remain a starter in the next 2 years. If that control continues to be a problem, allow him to go into a bullpen role, maybe even a role, maybe even a closer like you mentioned there. But the value is certainly there to still be a starting pitcher. They ain't giving up until the very last minute on that one either. Rafe, as of now, who has the edge on a roster spot, Leiter or Rocker? Leiter by a mile. Leiter has a lot easier, has a lot more innings under his belt. Rocker is still building up, and it sounds like the Rangers want to keep his innings available anyway. Remember, this is a guy that hasn't thrown a lot of innings the last 4 years anyway, and so he's going to have to, kind of manage his innings as he goes through the year. One way to do so is having him start in the minor leagues and build up slowly in spring training. If he earns a spot out of spring training, absolutely go for it. But then you're going to have to be counting on some other guys or some of time being missed throughout the year of injuries or just pulling him from the rotation so you can kind of manage his innings so he's available for you in October. And by the way, the Rangers are one of the favorites out of the American League to get to the World Series now that the Yankees have faltered with Cole and Heal's injuries, not to mention Giancarlo Stanton and the lack of an additional bat to that lineup this offseason. Yankees are certainly going through it right now. Yankees feeling the pain of rushing him back. True, Robertson coming to Camden. I kind of was advocating for that yesterday in our live that we did, that I thought he would be a good replacement for Kittredge in that bullpen as well. Watching the Phillies suffer. I'm projecting at Hollywood will definitely use him. All right. Yeah, but it's not like umps are just garbage nightly. True, but, even for me, just, this is going to sound a little bit ridiculous, but even one call, like, what are we doing here? Like, if we have the ability to get it right, get it right. Like, there's umpires, those scorecards come out and they're between that 93 to 99 range, and sure, they're doing a great job, but that one call that they miss could be the difference in a guy getting to first base or not. The end of a rally, the beginning of a rally, could be the last pitch a pitcher throws. There's a lot that changes with the outcome of these strikes and balls that are being called. You don't like that word. Angel Hernandez, I'm looking at you. Yeah. Plus, you love the old enthusiast ring him up umpires, too. You'll still have all those crazy umpires doing the, hi-ya, there's strike one. Hi-ya, strike two. I forget who does that one. Who basically throws his arm out every single time and flexes his bicep every single time he's making a strike call. And it's when a big old strike three, strike three, you're out of here. You'll still get those crazy calls. I'm sure they'll be showboating still. In fact, they'll have more time to do it if you really like that kind of a thing. All right. If they all were like absolutely, but smash the like it's a robot. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that one. I will say that as enthusiastic as I am about technology improving the game, I do understand that there are people who are less comfortable with it. That it's usually the younger generation that's generally more adaptable to these kinds of things. And we need to be patient with some people who are less familiar with it. And that's just being smart and educating the people about it. Not lecturing to them about, this is how it should be done. We should absolutely try to get the 100% accuracy. Kind of what I'm doing right now. But actually go through and actually show them. Let Major League Baseball be the ones that tell you and show you how the replay system works right now. Let them show you how the Robo umps would work. And that's what I think is the next step for getting the Robo umps there. I just think this is an olive branch to those people who are more hesitant to a Robo ump to allow this system to come into place and be like, hey, we only have 2 challenges a game? What is that? We use them up in the first inning because the umpire missed a ball that was, a foot off the plate and called it a strike. We didn't have a challenge in the 4th inning, for the challenge that would have allowed a run to score. Bases loaded, 3-2 pitch, strike 3 called on a pitch that's a foot outside of the zone. A run would have scored, the rally would have continued. A pitcher would have been forced to come out of the game because now he's allowed to run to score, and he's got to face a new hitter with a fresh count. Each pitch can determine an outcome of a game. Some have more value than others, of course. Some have less value than others. But I'm just saying that having the technology there and utilizing it is obviously the better way to go. If you can get it right, get it right. I don't think anybody would look at something and say, I'm going to choose the less good option because of some moral high ground reason. There's no philosophical debate here that says the strike that's called by the umpire a foot off the outside corner is good for the game of baseball because the umpire feels good. There is no argument that makes sense for that. I think all of us would like to still see the game played at a really high level. We want smart decisions being made. When do you run on a pitcher? When your bat breaks through the zone? Is it at the back of the zone? Is it at the front of the zone? Is it when your bat is parallel with where you are with your feet in the zone? Where is going through the zone? Where does a check swing go? There's all kinds of things to change or improve or define in the game. And I'm not saying this is going to change every single one of those, but there are so many different ways to go about improving a game. We have a ready-made solution already that was proven in another sport that we've developed and kind of tinkered with the last 10 years to apply it to baseball. The VAR system tennis uses. Is it perfect for baseball? No. That's why they've been working on it for 10 years to get it to this point. And now we're finally getting to the point where Major League Baseball says, you're right. We should at least introduce a review challenge system. And that's what they've done. And so good on them for doing so. All right. Johnny, welcome in. The game is getting too tech smart. I don't think that's the way it's meant to be played. Meant to be played? I'll put it this way. Are we having a bat with, I don't know, an AI bat come through the zone and determine the outcome of the game? No. The pitch is still thrown by the pitcher. The bat is still being held by a batter. They're still choosing the swing decision, whether or not to swing at the ball. They're still choosing what to swing or how to swing at it, whether they want to go with more of a line drive approach, or if they want to go full launch angle, or if they're full three true outcomes in the game, or if they're a speed person. Are they trying to get the ball on the ground and beat the ball out to first base? There's still all kinds of strategy that goes into the decisions of every single player on the field. I'm the third baseman waiting for my pitcher to throw the pitch. Am I positioned where I should be? Sure, the analytics tell me where to go, and the umpire or the manager tells me generally where to position. But how am I ready in my stance? Do I set my feet wide so I can go ahead and be ready to get low in the crouch so I can make more of a dive right or left? Do I keep my feet together so I'm ready to sprint one way or the other? Do I get lower to the ground so I can jump up higher if need be? If a 100-mile-an-hour line drive goes over my head, I might have a chance to leap up and grab it. Whereas if I start in a standing position, I don't have that coiled reaction time. There's all kinds of different ways to get ready. Are you on the infield grass? Do you have your toes on the grass? What kind of cleats are you wearing to make sure that you don't slip and fall? What kind of glove fits your hand the best? Do you go overhand when you're trying to throw it over to first base? Or are you naturally more of a side armor? Are you accurate with either one? How fast can you get it over there? Are you able to throw out a burner? Or are you able to throw out, Cal Raleigh running to first base? Not to throw Cal Raleigh under a bus, but you get my point. There's all kinds of strategy that goes into every single thing. And you could argue the Rangers lost the 2011 World Series, I think it was 2011, anyway, when they faced the Cardinals, because they positioned Nelson Cruz too far in. And Ron Washington will even tell you, while we had him playing in, we did not want him playing that far in. So it was still the player on the field that made the decision. Yes, my manager wants me to play a little bit further in so I can cut a runner down at home plate. Nelson Cruz decided, hey, I'm going to play a little further in to cheat just in case so I can make sure my throw gets there. And instead the ball whistles over his head. Rangers lose the World Series. The game was still determined on the field. Strategy still is important. Players make plays. Umpires should not be affecting the outcome of the game because of an incorrect call that is easily changeable. or fixable or just made correct in the first place. And then it's the ABS system, I think, is the first step to getting there. All right. At least two of us are thinking the same way. I'm fine with Robo umps, by the way. Cool, cool. All right. Let's see here. I feel like replacing umpires takes half the thrill and fun out of the game. You're not replacing umpires. Remember, you're still going to have all 4 umpires out there. You're going to still have 6 of them in the postseason. You're still going to have umpires deciding all kinds of calls all over the field. Umpires union can chill out. You're still going to have your job. Imagine if we had a season where we get robo umps, where we get 100% accuracy before McDonald's fixes their milkshake machines. I think that's a guarantee at this point. And it's, the McDonald's ice cream machine. Anytime you go there, I think every single one of us would have experienced this one at least 50% of the time. Their ice cream machine is always broken. Whether that means we're cleaning it for the night because we don't want to have and make ice cream all night long and be able to deal with customers for it, or whether it's actually broken. Rafe, to me, framing catchers are a better piece of art than Picasso paintings. I'll put it this way. I'm not much of an art guy. I'll say they have their place for some people, but I don't necessarily go all bougie for that kind of stuff. But, I like my posters that I have up of, movie posters that I have. Like, I got my Dirk poster over here holding his 2011 MVP, or Finals MVP trophy with the championship trophy in the other arm, wearing the championship hat on his head. Pretty cool. I got pennants all over here. Rangers World Series, Dallas Mavericks, which unfortunately it's going to be another 5 years before they're going to be my Dallas Mavericks again, but I'll still watch the games. I'll still hope for the best. Got my Seager on this side, Dallas Stars, Jamie Benn, all kinds of pendants. But I will say that as far as art, it does have its place. Framing catchers, I would argue, are more important than art to me, but, we'll see. Michael's on a rant. Yeah, kind of like the Angels. I don't understand people's hesitation to technology out of their resistance to change. If you understood more about it and made an educated decision about why you don't like it, I'd be more inclined to accept is the wrong word, to understand your position. But when it's just for the sake of wanting it to be nostalgic for the 1900s, when umpires were in their heyday, whatever the case may be, like when it's just get off my lawn kind of a thing, that's where I kind of draw the line for me. The world is always a changing place. I was kind of talking with my manager today about how I was talking about how things will never be back to normal, and how normal is actually change. That is normal. Change is always the ever constant thing in our lives. Whether we like it, the good change, or the bad change, change will always be the constant. So that's the normal. And so while baseball has done a really good job of being resistant to that, and we do enjoy baseball for its ability to maintain a lot of its heritage and so forth, getting balls and strikes called correctly isn't exactly changing the heritage of the game. The one thing you're taking away is those quote-unquote framing catchers. However, the one advantage you are getting, how baseball was originally intended to be. A strike is a strike, a ball is a ball, your strike zone is from here to here, and again, we're going to define that a little bit more accurately when they do the review system. And, they'll be tinkering with it for a little bit here and there, but by and large, I think we all can agree that change is always a constant in our lives, and it's just a matter of whether or not it's a good change or a bad. Obviously, you get rid of the bad and figure out what works. And if it doesn't work, it needs to go away. If it does work, hey, adapt and move forward. All right, Rafe. I don't know, the most exaggerate change I would support is being able to challenge a strike 3 call. I don't know. That's how I like the game, I guess. I hear you, Rafe, and that's kind of what what this year's ABS system is for, to get the people that are resistant like you to at least see how it would work. You guys always see the Fox broadcast as far as that strike zone on the screen. That's largely based on the camera in the outfield. That's 300, 400 feet away from home plate. The actual strike zone, is something that will be calibrated for each ballpark that is managed by Major League Baseball, not by the television broadcast that's being done at the game. And so, yes, you would have some inaccuracies on that Fox broadcast of whether that strike was a ball or a strike. The ABS system is not that. And I think that's where a lot of fans who are against a review or a challenge system are like, hey, this technology isn't there yet. Well, yeah, if you're doing it from 400 feet away in center field when you have that box, but that's not how it's going to be done. Each ballpark is going to have its own calibrated system that takes into account the positioning of home plate and the positioning of the batter, where their batting or where their strike zone is supposed to be in relation to their height. Now, that's the part they're going to be working on over the next couple of years. But that's how they're going to try to introduce a little bit more technology and a little more accuracy into the game. All right, Heel, that's all you had to say, Michael, was Angel Hernandez. Bring on the Robo umps. Well, I don't want to beat on a dead horse here, but Angel Hernandez was not the worst, by the way. He just had some of the most egregious ones, but he actually didn't even grade out as one of the worst umpires, even in his final season. Just to kind of give you an idea of how many great umpires there are, but at the same time, how some umpires really shouldn't be doing that thing anymore. There are some umpires that they call up from the minor leagues that try to get their feet wet in it that ultimately prove to be a little bit more accurate. But there's still some interesting things that I think baseball could do to improve the game outside of just robo umps. But I like what they've done. I like the changes that they've made. And I think that us as fans of baseball, shepherds of the game for our kids, for the next generations, need to make sure that it's still a great, high-quality game even for them. Rafe, do an umpire report card where failing to reach a certain score cans you from officiating Major League Baseball games for months. They actually do that already. That's kind of how they judge their umpires. Now, there is a couple of websites out there that do that independently, but Major League Baseball has their own internal scoring system that they follow. Ethan, welcome in. Been a minute since I've seen you. Cooper Kupp close to going to Dallas. I have not heard anything along those lines, but I can check that one out as soon as we finish up. In fact, I'll be doing an NFL Live tomorrow afternoon. Maybe I just can't open, I just ain't open to change since it was my whole childhood and now it's changing. Well, I mean, I'm with you there, Rafe. I mean, I'm resistant to change at times too. That's not a bad thing. It's just part of being human. And like I was talking about earlier, I was talking about with my boss how change is just, or I was kind of looking for when things would get back to normal because we were insanely busy at work today and have been for months, it feels like, years at this point. And we were both dog tired, and it was only 2 o'clock, and we had several hours to go still. And I was sitting there going, "Hey, here we go," and just trying to brace for more because we had more people call out today and adding more workload. I think working where I work anyway, that's the single biggest frustration of my job anyway, is just people not showing up for work. And there's the argument to be made. It's a different mindset, work ethic, and to some degree, I'll say that's accurate. But at the same time, it's also upon the company to come out with a roster of people to be able to handle any type of influx or reduction in staff as necessary. The part-time workers that you can flex those hours up when you need to, or not, or like they choose nowadays, don't even bother having them. If you need part-timers, go ahead and get rid of them. You don't need them that bad if you need them at part-time status. Or there's some employers out there that don't believe in full-time workers because then you have to pay benefits, but that's a whole different can of worms. But you get my point. Change is always a thing, and all of us wish things would get back to normal at one point or another, or stay normal or not change. But change is the ever-constant thing. Change is the normal. It's whether or not it changes good or bad that we continue to grow and adapt, get rid of ideas that don't work out. There's a theory called the marketplace of ideas. And basically an idea is tested out there in the market. I have a new shiny object that I think is going to change the world and revolutionize how we drive cars, right? Whether you buy my product or not tells me whether or not the change is a good idea or a bad. If it's a bad one, my product goes unsold and I go out of business. Marketplace of ideas says, hey, I have a new wheel that works better. Hey, that wheel does work better. You decide to buy it for you and your family. The marketplace of ideas allows me to flourish, and now my idea has changed for the future good of our society, etc. Same thing here in baseball. Don't want to get too far down those rabbit holes, but just to say that, I'm not changing because I don't like change is not exactly the way the world works. And all of us sometimes like to be that way, but eventually we come around and realize change is what happens, and it's whether or not it's a good or a bad, whether we accept it or not. All right. Cowboys Nation. I don't know. I'd say Sugano is similar to Greg at his age now. His command is pretty impressive. I can't see the professor not being a Hall of Fame pitcher in any era. I'll put it this way. I'm not even sure he would have gotten to the major leagues at this point. There are several pitchers in the draft that are not picked because they're quote-unquote pitchability. If you ever hear this word in the MLB draft, pitchability, hear this sound. That's their draft stock. You hear velocity, you hear triple digits on the radar gun. What do you hear? That sound going right up. You're hearing dollar signs. Cha-ching, my friend. Your draft stock is rising because you can throw a fastball. We can teach you location. We can teach you how to get close to the corners to where you might be able to get some swing and miss. But the pitchability guys, those guys get drafted in the 10th, 11th, 12th round at best. The really, really good ones, maybe there's like 10 to 20 of those guys that get drafted higher in the draft. Those guys aren't necessarily seen as high risers. You don't hear the word helium in those prospects on those guys. Every single time you hear a draft, pitchability is kind of the death knell for a prospect. You don't want to hear that name or hear that word next to your name and draft stock. So just kind of keep that in mind, and that's just from the beginnings. Not to mention how you're being taught how to pitch in the minor league or trying to pitch in your high school or travel ball team or even in the little league. You're not taught to, paint the corners. You're taught to throw hard. You're taught in travel ball to throw curve balls before your arm is really developed to even be able to handle that pitch. And that's kind of where I think the game could use some improvement. And by having a Robo ump system would allow some of those guys to get back into the sport that we love so much. Heel, don't insult WWE referees. They have a script. Baseball does not, JK, true. But it always makes me laugh whenever the referee is obviously being distracted. And I just love it when there's a lot of correlations to other sports, how their eyes are drawn to the candy over here, but miss the absolute egregious call in front of them. You look at the playoff game with the Saints and Rams, where I believe it was the Ram cornerback or was it? I can't remember who it was, which team got obliterated, but the ball wasn't even there yet. The defender ran through the receiver a full second before the ball got there, and no flag. I'm trying to remember. There was a couple of Vikings games this year where there was complete face mask, head ripped around, 180 degrees facing the other direction. The referee is 8 yards away from it, looking directly at it, and for some reason, because he can't see the hand on the face mask, but he can see where his face mask was when he was looking at him, and where his head is, he doesn't throw the flag. Or because a player is walking by in front, he doesn't see the face mask. Meanwhile, there's another umpire that's back there with him, having another completely different viewpoint and doesn't see it. That's kind of when the whole WWE referee reference kind of comes into play for me. All right, let's try to wrap up here in just a few minutes here. Robo umps. Let's see here. Just missed one there. Robo umps are giving some pitchers Freddy Krueger nightmares. We'll see. You like Rocker? He's going to be solid if healthy. I think he'll be really solid. I think the Rangers are just going to be cautious with his innings. I'll say this is called Major League Baseball, so I think at some point, rather traditionalists like it or not, we should get robo umps on every pitch. I do like that we do have some traditions in the game and so forth, but adapting a tradition also isn't a bad thing. Improving a tradition isn't a bad thing. You still have the tradition. All right, Rafe, fun fact, I've never been told it was broken. Let's see here. Cowboys Nation, if they go back and give Arenado his perfect Armando, yes, I remember him. Armando, I'll accept new technology, a.k.a. Robo-Ump. I doubt they'll ever go back in the record books for things like this. The one time they really did was this past season, actually, where they finally allowed Negro League stats to be allowed to be counted as Major League stats for the first time ever. Um, pretty great move, honestly, in my opinion, um, for Major League Baseball to finally acknowledge that. Must be a city folk issue. Tim, if Alonso opts out of the remaining 1 year, $24 million left on his contract after the season, will the Mets sign Vladdy from the Jays? I think they will try, even if they have Alonso under contract, even if he does opt into that deal. The Mets are going to try for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Mark my words. I don't think it's contingent on anything with any other player. They're going to be in on Vladdy. Rafe, when I get to my house built, I'm going to have my room filled with Texans, Rangers jersey, like 15 jerseys strung across the walls. Going to be awesome. Uh, it's when you do buy a house, I will say this: getting the ability to decorate your house and uh, set it up the way you want. You don't have to sit there and put everything you've ever owned into one single room. It certainly is pretty nice, and the fact that you own the place, you get to continue to build projects and know that it's going to be there for the next 50 years for you to enjoy. It's a really nice special thing, and with the cost of renting right now, I encourage you to buy anyway. All right, let's see here. Panthers jerseys, okay. If Pete opts out, that means he had a good season. The Mets will re-sign him. I would agree with you there, Steven. I think that the decision for Guerrero is completely independent from Alonso. Whether he has a good season, a bad season, he opts in or he opts out, I think Alonso, one way or another, will not impact the decision around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. If they sign Vladdy and they bring back Alonso, put one of them at DH, one of them at first base, or put Vladdy over there at third. I don't think one precludes the other from happening. Let's see here. Mets are going to target Vladdy regardless of having Pete or not. Yes, I agree. They put them around the mound, don't they? I think Norfolk AAA, it's by the mound. Yes, but there's also some that have an overhead component. There's some that have it behind the backstop, behind home plate as well. Some kind of doing like a triangulation kind of a thing, so they can get a better 3D kind of a thing. There's all kinds of ways that they do it. Different technology that's been brought up. There's a lot of companies that have built a lot of systems that will work for this type of adaptation, but they're just trying to figure out which one works the best for it to be used in Major League Baseball. You streaming NFL free agency, we'll have a live tomorrow about NFL free agency, so make sure you join us for that one. I'm planning on that one probably in the early afternoon hours. Let's see here. I didn't see your reply to me, but probably McD is on top of their game. Yes, when the NFL Live going to be? Got to go to bed early tomorrow. Would prefer not to miss it. I'm leaning towards around 1 o'clock, so that's when we're planning to do our NFL Live, kind of go through all the names that changed hands. And I was going to put a rather spicy video out there as far as NFL free agency, basically calling NFL free agency trash. And by and large, it is. It's a lot of overpaid players. It's a lot of past their prime players. It's a lot of backups that were never good on other clubs that are looking for new life on another team. It's a lot of that. There's not a whole lot of difference makers out there that sign contracts that are actually going to be useful and beneficial to other clubs. That's why it's free agency. Very rarely do you see free agency ultimately dictate the success of a team. Certainly does help improve teams, sure, from time to time, but this is not the free agency class for this. This is one of the worst free agency classes we've had in years. The names are there, sure, but the ability is a little bit lacking, I'll put it that way. But there are still some good names out there, some value signings you're going to see that I think will have a difference on a lot of rosters out there. We'll look at the Patriots signing of Milton Williams, for instance, one of the better defensive tackles in the game, goes there. I think that's going to be a great boon for their defense with Mike Vrabel coming in. But there's a lot of teams that have made some other interesting decisions. Commanders have decided not really to test free agency as much, but necessarily go for trades and get more valuable assets that way. Whether you think Deebo Samuel is one of those assets remains to be seen. Devontae Adams in free agency as well. Again, there's not a whole lot of upside left in these players, but we'll get into all of that and more tomorrow around 1 o'clock, so be sure to join us then. Ours still gives peanuts with their Sundays. Okay. Probably independently owned like ours. Yes, it's been years since then. Greetings. Welcome in, Mark. Appreciate you joining us. Saints game. Yes, it was the Rams nickel corner. Roby, that was it. That was it. Who will be the bigger star in Texas? Cam Smith or Kumar Rocker? Good question. I think Cam Smith has a really good chance. I'm not sure how good of a player he's going to be, though. Kumar Rocker already has higher status, I will say, as far as name recognition, drafted by the Mets, etc. Um, he has more cachet entering his career already. If he lives up to the hype, Kumar Rocker probably gets there. If both guys live up to the hype, I still think Kumar Rocker gets there. I think Kumar Rocker would have to not be as good as profiled for Cam Smith to overtake him. I'll put it that way. This NFL draft is pretty weak. It ain't great as far as the quarterback position, but there are a couple of positions that do have some depth there. But it's not necessarily as good at the top as we've seen in years past. Rafe, whoa, don't talk about my love of football like that now. I'll put it this way. There's a reason football is my fourth favorite sport. I can't stand the way... I know I'm a Cowboys fan, but I can't stand other Cowboys fans who are like, we them boys, talking about how they were 5-11 back under Dave Campo and they were going to win the Super Bowl. Like, get a grip. And we still have those fans even now. Now, I'm not saying all Cowboys fans are like that, but they give other Cowboys fans a bad name. That's the reason why Stephen A. Smith can't stand Cowboys fans. And every single time I hear anybody talk about the Cowboys, it's always something along those lines, or their distaste for Jerry Jones, or something like that. And it's just repetitive, tired storylines that are the same thing year in and year out. And it's not my cup of tea. And that's not just Cowboys fans. You get really... pillars of society anyway, booing a guy that breaks his neck on a football field, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus, throwing beer cans at a guy that literally just broke his neck on the football field there in Philadelphia. There's a lot of distasteful things from fan bases, but as far as the play on the field as well, it's so far offense heavy right now. Defenders don't really stand a chance, especially cornerbacks. Very rarely do you see cornerbacks even be able to change systems and be able to keep up to that level as well, and that's been a problem going back 15, 20 years. All of the top end sports talk is always talking about the NFL. Complete oversaturation in the market. That's kind of why I lean a little bit more baseball here. My favorite sport to actually go and watch is probably hockey. Baseball and basketball probably tied for second, and football a distant fourth. Not to say that I don't still enjoy getting ready for the season, doing the fantasy drafts, getting excited for the NFL, but I know by week 5, week 6, I'm going to be burnt out from the NFL already. And we started out doing a lot of NFL content because it gets views, and it does, but at a certain point, it just burns me out. I'll put it that way. Cowboys fan, I knew I liked you for some odd reason. It's been a tough time. I'll put it this way. I was born in 1990, so I was living up in South Dakota for all those years the Cowboys were actually good, so I got to enjoy them throughout their entire struggle, so you guys can tell it's been a long-suffering fandom here in Texas. Excited to talk some Texans with you, as long as you aren't goofy as the CBS reporter who said Kenyon Green was one of our best linemen. I'll put it this way, that Texans offensive line was rough last year. For Stroud, he wasn't confident in the pocket. He had happy feet all season long. That's the reason why he really regressed last year and didn't really develop the way he should have last year. They need to improve that offensive line. What's your go-to opening day meal? I'm always a sucker for a good steak. Surf and turf's always great. If I'm at the ballpark, probably trying the new items that are at the ballpark. I live close to the Texas Rangers ballpark, so usually you're talking like barbecue or something along those lines. But I don't think I would. I'll put it this way: I don't have the funding to go to an opening day game. I'd rather go to a Tuesday game at 7:00 in the evening. Nobody's there. Early because it's a Tuesday night, so I get great parking. I show up early, and I'd love to be able to watch batting practice, but every single time I try to get there early enough to be able to watch batting practice, it's a day where they've chosen not to do so, or they won't even let me in. The Quincy Carter years were rough. Chad Hutchinson, like you're saying there, Cowboys Nation. Let's see here. Texans have a pretty solid core. I do like their team right now, but they do have a ton of receivers. You love Nico Collins. Be careful with how you say Nico right now, my friend. Nico means a lot of different things in the Dallas area right now, and a lot of them are not positive. Go Caps. Caps are a pretty good team this year. I just don't think they're necessarily on the skill level of other teams. They do find a way to win games, which is the ultimate goal. But I think once they get to postseason play, once they get to the Stanley Cup final, etc., once they get into the playoffs, I think that's where they're going to start running into some issues where that top end play is really going to have to come through. I'm not saying that they're not going to be able to do it. I'm just saying that they're going to have a little bit tougher time than, say, teams that have a little bit more skill than they do. Our defense is looking like the best in the league. We got some bloody dogs. I'll agree that they do have some pretty good defensive players, but I still think they got more work to do, specifically on that offensive line. Crab cakes, those are pretty good. We definitely do, but people act like us moving Tunsil was a bad. It's moving money. Changing that offensive line was needed, and I think going younger at the position, maybe going a different direction in free agency with that offensive line was necessary as well. Steven, thanks for the $2. Appreciate that. Would the Yankees have traded Nestor Cortez today? If it got them Devin Williams, I still think they would make the deal. I would put it that way. I think they'd realize that Nestor Cortez is not the difference between them being a World Series favorite team out of the American League, and that he's still a good starting pitcher. And yes, they do need depth, but if you're telling me you could get Devin Williams in exchange for Durbin and Cortez, they do that trade all day long, twice on Sunday, even with the injuries they have now. Because then they can still add a pitcher of similar quality that's still out there in free agency, like a Lance Lynn, on the short term, or go and trade and go for a bigger fish like a Dylan Cease. There were some rumors about that today as well. Easy now. Guess which quarterback got sacked 52 times last season? That would be Stroud, I believe. C.J. Johnson was the missing piece of our defense. Excited this year. Would we draft Alfred Collins? I think the Texans are going to be pretty good. They just need to figure out that offensive line. I don't think the defense was necessarily their problem last year. They need offensive line more than anything else. Brodus with the hat trick tonight. I have not checked on too many of the scores tonight. I will check those out tonight after we log off. Welcome in, D-Rod. Appreciate you for joining us. Nico spelled that way means cat in Japanese or cat characters in anime. Okay. D-Rod, oh yeah, you trade Cortez for Williams all day long. Yes, absolutely. I'm not from Dallas area, so it's Nico. I'll put it this way. If you're a basketball fan, period, if you enjoy sports, period, Nico is persona non grata. He was actually in the San Antonio area, or at the San Antonio Spurs game with the Dallas Mavericks in San Antonio, and was still getting fire Nico chants. Every single fan base is saying it. FC Dallas Soccer is even chanting it at their games. He is a person that is not wanted pretty much anywhere in the sports world right now. So I would expect him to be fired after this year. I don't care what vision he has for the future. I don't care that he never got to see his team he wanted to build on the floor. He has ruined the Dallas Mavericks' future, and I think even though the ownership group there has typically stayed out of the meddling in the team or anything like that, I think changing the fortunes of their organization, ruining their investment vehicle, costing them billions of dollars in future revenue, is where they're going to draw the line, and Nico Harrison will be fired, and he'll go back to Nike. I thought he was a great GM. Thought he was a decent hire coming in. I thought he'd be able to recruit free agents, maybe get you in the door for some of those trade negotiations that a trade might percolate where a guy like an Anthony Davis says, hey, I want to go to Dallas because I have a relationship with Nico Harrison and I want to play with Luka. Instead, he trades the Golden Goose for 3 magic beans. And, yeah. Yuck. Anthony Davis is already getting hurt. Yeah, he needs to go. I don't think he needs to go. I think Anthony Davis is just a guy caught in a really bad situation. I feel bad for him. He gave us everything to the Dallas area so far since he's come in. He's been the model professional. And, injury has happened. I think the Mavericks absolutely rushed him back because they wanted to take the heat off of Nico Harrison. Another thing we should be absolutely lambasting him for, but have given him no pub for how they rushed him back from his injury. An injury that, oh, by the way, was caused because the existing injury he had in correlation with what he was already dealing with caused the other issue he's having now that might require him to have surgery in the offseason to correct. So while he's had significant injury issues throughout his career, the reason why he is out right now for the Dallas Mavericks is absolutely 100% because they wanted to rush him back to be able to take some of the heat that was going on for Nico Harrison. All right, Lucas, FC Dallas, Dallas Stars, FC Dallas, SMU. Basketball and soon MLB opening day. Yes. What's good, Lucas? Welcome in. Welcome in. Pretty decent. Yesterday's UCL night, so I'm fine. Let's see here. Is Clay a free agent this offseason? No. He is in purgatory, as his dad basically told the media the other day that he's stuck in Dallas for this atrocity that's happened in professional sports. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Again, your headlines. Vladdy was looking for $500 million in a contract extension from the Blue Jays. Blue Jays only offered between $400 and $450 with deferrals. Guerrero does not want deferrals in that deal, and he wants the present-day value, if there is deferrals in that deal, to be at least $500 million. So that's kind of the ground floor for where talks are going to pick up in the offseason, and I'm expecting him to get between $500 to $600 million in free agency. As far as the other headlines, the Dodgers have decided to option Hae-Sung Kim, who is supposed to be their starting second baseman as they go to play internationally. A lot of head-scratching moves there for the Dodgers. Tells me they may be looking for some offensive upgrades. And again, keep your eyes on Nolan Arenado as far as an offensive piece they could bring in. Remember Muncy and all the different positional versatility they do have with their multi-positional players that they should be able to utilize. Apparently, the issue for him is the bat was the worry coming into the season, that he would be too light of a hitting player to be able to stick on a Major League roster, and so far that seems to be the case right now. And then, of course, the last bit of news here, of course, ABS system is coming this year. Hopefully, my position anyway, hopefully we get Robo umps to at least get us more accuracy at the game and continue to evolve and make the game better. We need Canelo Alvarez versus Nico Harrison, just saying. I would definitely pay for that pay-per-view right now. I would love to see Nico Harrison try to pull up for a WWE event and try to insert himself into WrestleMania and get the people's elbow and get all that kind of stuff at WrestleMania. I would love to see that. I mean, the WWE would be really good television to get that done. I'll put it that way. Let's see you for that football talk tomorrow. Hopefully Texas make a nice splash. We can talk about it. All right. Love that he rejected the deferral bullshit. I hear you. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Again, tomorrow around 1 o'clock, we'll have our NFL free agency live, so be sure to join us then. And then, of course, our MLB Hot Stove Daily in the evening. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys hit that like on the video. The hearts are nice, but make sure you guys hit that like on the video. Really does help us out. Follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. If you don't get the notifications here on YouTube, that's where we post it. That's what the first 2 minutes is of every single live I do, is I'm sharing it on all those other platforms. That way you guys know we are live here on YouTube. Appreciate you guys joining us. Did you see the hat? I did not see the hat. I did hear about it. And just put it this way. They should have checked their spelling before they did that. All right. Y'all have a great day out there. Great evening. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys tomorrow around 1 o'clock for our NFL free agency video. And tomorrow evening for our MLB Hot Stove Daily. Appreciate you guys. Stay safe, everybody.